you guys, one of his mentees who is going to help us organize a little bit today, some memories. So she'll be giving you all an opportunity to share a story or a memory. Also, if you want to write something down, we're going to put a book together. We've got a couple of members of Doc's family here. Marilyn and Eric, where are you? Right here. And so we're so happy to have them here today to help us honor Doc. And we've got a few of our Latin department. I think that I saw Jeff Miller here. There he is, right there. And we've got Brett Hurd right in the back. So the Latin department here is well represented, and I'm going to let Katie Lamb take over.
Thank you, Susan. So Katie Lamb, I'm class of 2006. My parents also work here, Rich Lamb here. And I also had the privilege of being a part-time Latin teacher for 3 years here as well. All right, so welcome. It's an impossible task to try to give an accurate picture of the many facets of Dr. Stephen Rosenquist, known to many of us as Doc. I appreciate everybody's patience with me in this process. And more than anything, I'm looking forward to hearing the experiences and stories from everyone else here. So to this day, I still smell cats every time somebody is that's true. Bear with me here. Every time somebody is grinding coffee beans around me. You see, my parents aren't coffee drinkers, so Doc's house was the first exposure I had to the smell, hence the association with cats. So Doc shaped my mind in more ways than I can count, and I'm sure everybody in the room and many people who could not be here today can relate. I hope to become even a quarter of the person that he was. Doc was the most well-rounded person I have ever met. He knew the definition and etymology of every word in the dictionary, and I actually mean every word. We used to spend the 15 minutes between classes trying to find a word he didn't know. Doc also knew the names of every tree or flower I have ever seen, and of course their corresponding Latin name. He knew how to preserve the most delicious flavors of jams, and he was an amazing bridge player and knew everything about cats. He was so well-traveled and knew everything about Greek and Roman mythology. And I remember him spending an entire class going through each American president in chronological order, telling us at least one fact about them. Of course, we thought we had fooled him because we had distracted him, but then he let us know that that meant that those could be on our next test. And above all his knowledge, Doc had the most graceful way of delivering wisdom from his own experience in a way that would break through even the stubborn mind of a teenager. Rather than telling us what to do, he was a living example. Doc gave me not only a lifelong passion for Latin, but he also saved my life and the lives of countless others on multiple occasions. Now, what I'm sure we can all recall are Doc's one-liners, and I continue to hear them echo in my mind. I know I will for the rest of my life. And I'd like to share a few highlights. Now, for those of us who had Doc as a Latin teacher, we remember, and I know I'm not going to do any of these any justice, but each time a student would have an incorrect translation, which was often, he would cry out, "What have you done to my beloved Latin?" And when you dared to use the word if, he would reply, "If pigs had wings, then bacon would be expensive." And sometimes he would even pull out a picture of a pig with wings for extra effect. He loved to keep score between Latin and humans. For example, Latin 2,685, humans -1. That was on a good day. And if a student ever got lost in our reading and asked, "Where are we?" he would reply, "In the Latin room." And one of my favorites, when somebody would accidentally drop their Latin book, he would say, "Oh, is that the sound of your grade dropping?" Then there were the one-liners regarding life lessons. I remember him using this line on multiple occasions, saying suicide is a permanent solution to a temporary problem. And then whenever we were getting down on ourselves, he would say, "Don't should on yourself." If you ever mentioned resenting something, he would pipe, "You resent that? You mean you resemble that?" And one of my favorites is "More shall be revealed." And of course, when a person dared to mention being bored, he would chime in, "Only boring people get bored." And a quote he might have borrowed from Yoda, "Don't try, do. These quick-witted phrases resonated with me and so many others, and his delivery of them gave them all the more impact. I always knew how incredible of a person Doc was, but it truly struck me in a profound way after he passed away. Within 48 hours of him passing, I spoke with people across the country, in California, Iowa, Arizona, Michigan, Boston, and other places. And each person I talked to commented on the life-changing impact Doc had had on each of their lives. I spoke with a variety of people, including many I had never met before. We also managed to find homes for his 7, and it was only 7, remaining cats in a matter of weeks, because it could have, been like 16. But Doc left an amazing footprint on the world, and I take comfort in knowing that the ripple effect of his presence will continue far beyond his time here. The last phrase of Doc's I will share is, "We will talk again exactly when we're supposed to." I'm sorry. He ended every phone conversation and voicemail for me with these words, and I know that indeed he and I will talk again exactly when we're supposed to. Thank you.
Sweet. Good job, honey. Good job, baby.
So that's enough out of me. I'd love to kind of open the floor to folks who would like to share, just kind of being mindful of how many people are in the room. So if anybody kind of feels moved, they can go ahead and either stand up or move forward, or whatever feels comfortable. So.
Well, I guess as a faculty member who lived above him both our first year in Stevens dorms with freshmen, which was both new to us, I think, but I do remember the cigarette smoke walking up and the cat smell. But I just remember how giving he was to students. And in a freshman dorm, you have kids who just want to go out and get trouble. There's kids who just want to, they're barely out of the house. They do not want to socialize. And his 2-day running Monopoly games were incredible, just to take care of the kids, to make them feel comfortable in a space that maybe they felt was too big for them or whatever. But he always made the kids feel so comfortable. And he gave so much, and anytime I needed help, because I traveled a lot, he would take my dorm duty, and he was just very giving to all the kids.
Well, there's so many things about Doc that it's hard to start in one place. If you ever saw him in the cafeteria eating, brunch, you've never seen it. I mean, the plate would be rounded and heaped bacon. Probably killed 4 pigs just for that one. And he just did. And the coffee that he would drink and everything else. And he was just a fascinating guy. And some of his quips and things of that sort. We shared, of course, a love for cats. I have them myself. If you don't like them, too bad for you. Anyway, we'd have many conversations, and I can still remember some of the things he used to do. I mean, he got in an argument with Joyce Burrell, who was then the lead nurse at the Cranbrook Health Center, because he was not having a heart attack. It was not happening. It never happened in his family, and he was not having a heart attack. Well, they took him to Beaumont, and he had triple bypass surgery, but so many people called finding out what he was up to, that Beaumont pleaded with Cranbrook, saying, "We will update you. We will tell you what's going on. We're shutting down our circuits. Stop it." Because people just came from everywhere to find out how Doc was doing. And my favorite quip that he ever said, because he gets some great one-liners, he said to a young man, I shan't mention his name, but he's today a surgeon. He said, "We have discovered something faster than the speed of light. It's the time it takes for an idea to enter this young man's head and for it to leave it."
All right, I'll go next just because the chance to correct Dr. Cowie is just too... So Dr. Cowie started his story by talking about the cafeteria, and I know Doc would have jumped right in and said, "No, it's the refectory," because you always have to use a word of romantic origin. So. When we all leave Cranbrook, we go to our colleges, and it can be tough to sort of explain. Sorry, I'm really emotional about this stuff. But, when you go to college, it's like it's really hard to explain to your new friends how different the Cranbrook experience is. And like, I would say, well, I'm a music major, and they'd be like, well, oh, so you're a band geek. And I was like, I don't even know what a band geek is. We were all geeks at Cranbrook, and some of us were like multiple types of geeks. So, I mean, after like trying to explain it multiple times, I finally figured out the key thing was, let me tell you about my Latin teacher. And that pretty much did it. I said before, Doc was one part Mr. Keating from Dead Poet Society and one part Howard Beale from Network. He was simultaneously mad as hell and oh captain, my captain at the same time. I'm sure I would have been a music geek at any school and probably a math geek too. But I think only in Doc's class would I know to this day that the ratio of poetic lines in the even sections of the original Latin of the Aeneid to the odd sections is 0.618, which is also known as the golden mean, which is also the ratio of subsequent numbers in the Fibonacci sequence. So, my wife is a public school teacher as well, and she really relates really well to her students. But you know, she's never sold her car to her teacher, bought a car from a student. She's never been on a bowling league with a student, and she's never met a student at the top of a building overlooking the city of Rome 15 years after that student graduated, which was all experiences that I actually shared with Doc. So. I think when I was here, as much I probably didn't appreciate it at the time, but you know, in high school, you're so concerned about how you're perceived, and I was never super close to any teachers in the same way, but like as much as anybody, I think I could be myself 100% around Doc, because he sort of straddled this line of like teacher friend. He was kind of that anybody's character in West Side Story. So anyway, since I've graduated, I've become something of an avid gardener, and a couple months ago, I was looking at the back of my yard, and I got this big orange tree in the middle, a grapefruit tree over here, and I'm thinking, I was out pruning, and I'm thinking, well, how big do I want that grapefruit tree to be relative to that orange tree? I hit 0.618.
We were with Doc's first class in 1987 at Cranbrook, and the first minute I met him, I thought, I love this guy. And we loved him so much that we were kind of worried that he would get fired that first year. We didn't do any translating. I think we got through like 30 lines of Cicero by the end of the year. But I know that we had the greatest time with him standing on the desk yelling at us, with Mr. Dagbovy next door. Please be quiet. He would shout at us in Greek, and we would have to remind him this is Latin. He let us order pizza, and he let us do the most juvenile, terrible things to him, and he still loved us to death. Every time he would look down at his books, we would crowd our desks closer and closer to his until he would look up shocked. But I was not a normal child. I was a weird kid, and Doc let me know it was okay. He was fantastic.
It sort of reminds me of we did delight in tormenting him, and he was so good-natured about it, and just always, you know, even when he was yelling at you, he didn't really mean it, and you knew it, and so he would give us these vocab quizzes all the time, and several of us, Chris Grabowski in particular, delighted in figuring out ways for the whole class to cheat on these vocab quizzes. So, you know, there would be cheat sheets handed out before class that we'd get very upset. But this one time, Chris got to class ahead of time, and he put the entire vocab list on the chalkboard. And Doc came in, you know, head down, ready to hands up the board, sits down in front of the classroom, and we're all sitting there. Taking the quiz, hands it in, and then he goes to start the lesson and starts to erase the board. Suddenly realizes what we we've been up to, and he climbed up on the desk and turned purple, and screaming at us with his finger wagging, and I think it was Chris O'Brien sitting next to the light switch started flickering. And it was like, I guess it's not appropriate, but Zeus, I guess Jupiter, raining fury down on us. It was all good-natured, and it is a memory that I will carry on.
Do you remember when he chased you down the hall?
Somehow I blocked that.
I let you have a head start.
Sometimes he can be intimidating. I was not a good student. I was in it for the heart, on my team here in the plant too. But so he's doubly intimidating for somebody like me. I would forget to read or not translate correctly. He'd pull himself up on the door and go, conjugate! But Katie might remember this particular memory. This was after I probably graduated. I'd been back a couple times. We were on some of our adventures. And we were parked over behind Paige, and Doc was doing, I think, the Hick Pride or something. He was taking some kids out in the cram van. And he backs into my vehicle and comes out, he's one of himself, and he's like, no, I'll pay for it, I'll get whatever. And he was the most humble person, and all of my fear of, not fear, but intimidation of this man was kind of melted, and he's just a person.
So I'm probably one of the few people, ones that didn't have him as a student. He was dorm faculty from. And Katie said earlier that he saved her life, and I would say he saved mine as well. Rick and I came in as sophomores, and we had Jan Wells as a dorm faculty the first year. And Doc came rolling in one day when we were sitting downstairs with her, and dropped a deck of cards on the table and was like, all right, we're playing bridge. So he taught us how to play bridge, and he continued to do that for 3 years. He was there for me when I felt alone and when I felt isolated. And without saying anything, he let me know that I had a friend. And he was truth to me. For years afterwards, if I ever had a problem, I would just call him, and he would break it down and give me the honesty that I needed. And I find myself sometimes still thinking about picking up the phone and calling him, and then realize he's not there. But he is inside, he's here with us, and I just think of what he would say, and I know it just comes through, like he's still with me.
I just want to say a few words. It's going to be a bit emotional for me too. My brother and I had taught for 4 years when we were here at Cranbrook, and we've always reflected on what Cranbrook meant to us. We had occasion to go to some decent colleges after Cranbrook, but we were best educated here, and that was because of the teachers here. And Doc was one of those guys who really influenced me. And it was not just the classroom, but like everybody's saying here, was more of a friend. He was so erudite, so learned, but his heart was really what made Doc so special. And he was not only close to me, my brother, and my sister, but my entire family. When my grandmother got sick in South Africa, he actually called her. And it was devastating when my brother and I heard he passed away. And one of the main reasons I came here to my reunion was actually to be here. And he just meant so much to me. And I think he meant so much to all of us.
I have somebody to share along those lines. No one I'd ever met was more true to himself, more true to others. And he brought out the best in everyone. And if he didn't, he would call you a blockhead or something.
Doc was kind of like Kramer. He just kind of, wherever he was his own little world. I had French with Dagoby. So frequently, he would, you know, all the seniors outside, he'd be out there screaming at them, and then Dad would go outside and tell him to pipe down. You know, it was just one of those things where we just, what entertainment would you have in Prospero Dagoby's French class, you know, based on, you know, the seniors outside as well as Doc's reaction. That's what I remember. And him on duty in the dorm, just kind of whatever pontification he was doing on something in the Latin classes with other students around him in the dorm office. Is what I'll always remember.
Latin-French rivalry was great. Every time we come across something about, you know, the owner of the house beating, you know, a servant or something, like somebody dying on a battlefield, just be like, I just know they don't get sentences like this in French. It's reminding us that we're taking the pool language. Exactly. And some other smattering of memories. Every time we'd ask, you know, well, that doesn't make sense, Doc. Why does that? He goes, I don't know. Why don't you email the Romans? Romans.underworld.net. And just how terrified I was the first week in that class. I came in, because before you realize that there's a soft side that cares, the way he scowls at you. Like you know, if you do something that's stupid or you're unprepared or something, just the stares at you that, you know, and you think, oh, I've actually done something terrible and unforgivable. But then you just realize, I don't know, it's kind of maybe a learning curve, hazing thing with him. I don't know, some kind of rite of passage to like get over that initial fear of him. Still, one of the things that I will always remember about Doc is one time I was the only boarder to sign up for a Friday night ride into Birmingham. So this night, instead of taking the Cranbrook, we took Doc's little yellow dart. I've never been in a place that smelled like smoke so much. It's like a cigarette in your nostril. Yeah, that's all I've got there.
Cranbrook might have been in for repairs.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how many times I would be in the quad and watch Doc come across late for his 8 o'clock class, stoked with a cigarette and this coffee mug that you'd want in a dishwasher about a month ago. And it's just like, how did he drink coffee out of that stuff all his life? But he did give a lot to the kids in the dorm. I know that. He broke me in as the house advisor for Stevens when I started over there. He certainly has left great impressions on all of us. He used to argue with Woodruff about who would get the lung and who would get the liver, depending on what happened first, you know? So I just a great bunch of stories about them. So it's fun.
Parents visiting day was always a treat to see, like, parents coming in who don't know anything about Doc, and like, what? And they're just like shocked about the classroom, so that was always entertaining. And I also remember when Doc got a smart board, which was like really like entertaining for the very beginning. Like there'd be nothing on it for months, and then he discovered the soundboards, and he would, so then all of a sudden there'd be like Simpsons quotes that would be hurled at students, and then he would play his music, his like new age music, and like Ixohoxy would be coming from the soundboard, which was always great. And the one other thing that I want to say about Doc too is whenever he was on duty for a while there, he would have a couple of us would come and just like sit and pontificate with Doc, and like that was my favorite thing to do. And not a lot of people would really care to hear what, you know, high school students pompous have to say. You know, I think we know everything, but you know, he would talk to us as peers and about current events or philosophy or history, and that was, you know, one of the treasures that I had as a boarder to do. So I'm really thankful to have him as a teacher and as a guide, and I'm so happy to be here.
You mentioned him on Jeopardy.
True. You get national recognition.
Well, listen, I'm here as a parent of a Latin student, and we were forever grateful that Doc went over all the essays that went on the college applications, and then he came to the honors assembly and he would stand up at the back and he said, I want to see how many of my Latin students are getting all the awards. So he became part of all of us.
As the guy who had the unenviable task of being the next Latin teacher after Steve, I can tell you first that he was extremely kind to me. And I will always remember, I don't know what was going on. Katie's told me some stories about the interview process and who else they were looking at. But very early on, he had a couple of conversations with me before I came to visit and teach a class, and the day that I came to visit, he told me, well, I think you're probably it, so I need to warn you that I'm kind of a big personality. I may be leaving behind some big shoes for you to fill. And he couldn't have been more right. He gave me great advice along the way. I couldn't have been more happy to walk into a program that was full. I see 2 or 3 students who had to make that transition with me, who were excited and great to work with and a lot of fun. So it was great fun. But his warning was, of course, very accurate. As you already mentioned, some of the strange expectations that people seem to have of me, like that I would have the soundboard going and sound effects every couple of minutes, or random seniors in the hallway on the senior bench who would be very upset if I didn't pop out of the classroom holding the Board of Education about beating them senseless. And for many years, of course, I felt like I got to know him as a teacher because I would hear all the stories from the students, particularly the younger siblings, the disappointed younger siblings, who told me all the great things that they had heard and were ready to hear from Doc's class. And that was great. They were fun to hear. As time went by, I heard less and less of that, except for alumni who'd come back to be very disappointed to find that Doc had retired from Cranbrook. But they would tell me the tales as well. And then finally, I think after about 3 or 4 years, Kate, you can help me remember this, he came back to fill in for me. My dad was ill. I had to be away for a few weeks. So he had a triumphant return with a fresh group of kids who really didn't know much about him. The legend had kind of faded. And in that 2 weeks, he managed to fit in every single famous line and every one of his favorite tangents. So then again, for the next 4 years, I was regaling the tales of that strange guy, and when is he coming back? So I have the fondest memories of him as well, even though I mostly know him through your stories. And but again, those first couple of years, he couldn't have been a better advisor, mostly over the phone. I didn't get to connect with him much, but we had several conversations. Couldn't have been a better guy, and really did a very helpful and kind job of handing off the program. So I want to thank all of you all as well for coming back and sharing those tales.
So I'll add one thing. There was a quote that I think we missed was, I don't give, you earn. And last year I was asked to join the faculty of Wayne State just on a part-time basis. And in my first PowerPoint, I put that quote on my grading rubric. And I said, just remember, I don't give, you earn. Went right over their heads. And you could bet, at the end of the semester, I get all these emails, can you raise my grade by a half? And I must have typed that quote about 10 times. And so I take that with me, and he was just a phenomenal mentor to me.
Keep things fun. I'm Rosenquist. Different. But I like the humor. That's one part of it. But I think I have something for you. Let's see here. While sitting in the classroom in 7th hour Latin, not listening to bad translation or the constant noise of the seniors outside, I have taken a tally of Doc's phrases in the first page of my Latin book. So for your reading enjoyment, here's a list of what I have counted from March 13th to May 17th. Doc has said, shut up. 56 times. Doctor said silence, 60 times. Doctor said shh, 79 times. Yes. 39 times. Quiet, 24. Pay attention, 30 times. Sit down, 15. Park it, 17 times. You'll get eye strain. I'm not sure about that one, but that was only 6. Pinhead, 10 times. I'm not sure what Codex means. I'll get a translator. Thank you. I was always knuckle brain, dimwit. What else he called me as we grew up. And he would speak Swedish to me. Dean Drummel, and so on and so forth. Idiot 8 times, dimwit 4 times, Latin first 6 times. Look out here. I will kill you 3 times. Twit, sieve, bean, navel, rock, brain, bat brain. That's 25 times. Enough 7 times. Ba, 13 times. You will flunk genetics 2 times. I will choke you 18 times. The pigeons are coming to poop 2 times. I will pretzelize you only once. I will beat you senseless 4 times. Don't shoot yourself in the foot 4 times. I will break your finger bones 11 times. I will chew you up 3 times, and what with? 1 time. All right, so that's the fun part. I do have a little something to say on behalf of Steve. This is my wife, Marilyn, who's the executor of this estate. What a nightmare. You'll probably understand that he might have been organized on some things, but some things he was not. Real quick, on behalf of Steve's estate, we are presenting a check to Cranbrook for the amount of $15,000. What? I think we're supposed to give it to the admissions department, is what he had in his will. Okay, it's a check for some money. More importantly than the money, it's gratifying to read all the good wishes after he passed away. It was fun. The good wishes, the tributes, and thanks for Steve. He really did affect people's lives. Thanks again to Cranbrook Schools and their support for Steve's programs, and you'll like this one, ancient curriculum. Thank you. No, I want some more stories. I mean, you guys know him as well as anybody. And sure, I've visited him in a lot of different places, but the only time I came here, I think was in 1989 or 1987 when I was in the business and working in some states with my projects. But he was always a great friend to me, and I miss him still. Thank you. Well, come on, somebody's got to ask a good story, please.
Right, well, I don't have a story really because I'm a parent of a daughter who loved him, loved Latin, and she started in middle school, beautiful Latin program here, and she decided that she wanted to study classics in college because of him. She went on to Cornell, was a classics major there, and loved it. I mean, Latin was always her foundation and her root. And currently she is here, lives here. She's an attorney. She's the first woman in House Counsel for Penske Company. And she spoke at the Alumni Assembly today. She's the president-elect for the Alumni Association. So I'm very proud of her. And she loved your brother and was very much guided by him and the success of her career. So thank you for that.
Well, if you didn't notice, this is Steve's shirt. Steve's shoes. 10 pairs of New Balance. Apparently left a little early to get back home on the Sunday. Don't you take home, we're gonna leave all these clothes, and I couldn't help myself to get a few things. So I got a laundry basket and looked at a couple of the shoes. Oh, I like that size. So I put all the shoes. How many pairs of shoes, Steve, do we have? I will never have to buy another pair of shoes again.
Family are hoarders.
No, I want to thank her for doing a lot of the things that were necessary legal-wise, medically speaking. As we were here several times, going to Dr. Hazi's office and him getting his radiations and chemos and all of those kinds of things, and hanging out at the house. Even though we didn't stay there, we went to town and stayed in a hotel. But bringing him some foods and so forth. And by the way, if you're not like Emily Savet and has been given jellies and jams for what, 20 years, I did bring some of Steve's jellies and jams for those that have a sweet tooth, and might like to take one or two home that might be of concern. And also, there's a picture of Steve as a child, met Steve when he was in ROTC at Central High School in Omaha. And for the students, I did bring some of your vocabulary quizzes. And you'll have to give those to the new Latin teacher for corrections, because it's over my pay grade. No, again, I want to go back and read some of the things that were written right after he passed away. It was pretty cool.
Okay, I'll say a few words. I was a French teacher here for 28 years, and so I was a colleague of Steve for about, 20 or so. And so we worked together in the foreign language department. And Steve was a very good colleague, and he sure provided a lot of entertainment. If I had to go make some Xerox copies, in the workroom, and he was there, I just, went somewhere else. He used 2 machines at the same time. Copies were flying. The anxiety, the nervosity it generated was, I just couldn't take it. But he thrived on it. And his students loved it. Loved it so much that when my son came to 9th grade, going to take Spanish too, and I suggested that a few years of Latin would be good. No Latin. Oh, when he heard of Stephen Rosenquist, then he begged us, can I take Latin and Spanish? Sure, why not? If you can handle it, go ahead. And so he didn't leave Steve after that. Steve became his advisor, and he just loved him. And I think that's the way all his students, I couldn't figure out, sometimes the way, he treated them harsh. And they still loved it, they still went there, and asked for more. And the best was the fact that our departmental meetings. Those are pretty dreadful. I'm so glad I retired. But Steve provided entertainment. He always arrived a little late with bags or tons of papers to correct, sat down, and started pounding his head on the table, and made, and corrected copies while making all his faces and participating in the discussion when the discussion was worthy, and if not, he buried himself in his work. I think he was a tremendous, very hard-working teacher, extremely devoted to his students. I know he would have them come at 7 in the morning to help them out and so on.
Yes. Katie, what's gonna go with the cards that people have written things about Steve? Those will be kind of correlated, and we'll get the copy ready again. And
Yeah.
see if we can't get
We
some
need
of
to
those
capture these stories,
Yeah.
and then once
like
we've got everybody's stories, we'll send the book, the finished product onto you, Eric.
No, that'd be good because we have some family members and
Yeah, I
my
know they'll
parents
love
are
seeing
still
it.
alive
Yeah.
and so on. So they would like to, and they do send their thanks for. I'm just overwhelmed.
I actually wanted to just have to say something for a moment because I met Doc at a particularly transformative time in my life, like moving here and becoming a boarding student. And actually, I'm probably the person, I didn't take Latin because I wanted to. My mom made me do it. Which you can imagine. It's like definitely not a good setup typically. You know, I don't remember liking Latin enough to be good at it specifically on its own, but just kind of through his like passion and love of it, I got a chance to have like a really good introduction to it. You know, and kind of this whole like hectic, frantic, busy person just completely fascinated me. It like kind of superseded the language in and of itself, but also in the same way formed a medium for me because I was able to like connect to him through that and use that as like a love of Latin, which lasts me to this day. Like I was able to travel with him. We took a trip to Europe, so I'm with this like guy who's all over the place, like literally, and we're like walking through Italy. He knows like the best restaurants, and we like tour Rome and got a chance to go to Naples and getting a chance to see the history and the other side of like not just the Latin, but the like not just the mythological side either, but just like a comprehensive understanding of everything that involves like this place that has existed for like thousands of years, and being able to like understand that as like someone who I'm kind of young, like 30, so I was like 14 or something. But still, like to this day, I benefit from that specifically. Like having had that experience with Latin, I then started to take Spanish, and then I learned Portuguese and also French. So I'm able to communicate effectively in all these languages all over the world just because this one person had an ability to share something that's really boring. Like Latin's not even like always super boring. Except I had this one person who like turned the light on. You know, so it's like the difference between reading a book in the dark and the light time, or in the light for me. So you know, just getting a chance to see him in his element, and also the type of love and passion he had for everything, not just Latin, but his students and his cats, you know, his coffee, his cigarettes. He took everything so seriously. It was like boom, boom, like to the T, and I love that about it, just because he was like, you know, all or nothing and just totally connected. And through that, I was able to be a better student, to develop a worldwide perspective, a more cosmopolitan understanding of just like history of Europe, of America, of like the languages we speak, of Romance languages, of English, why a Germanic language has like all these funny words in it, and how it comes together, and then to leverage that as a tool, like taking SATs or ACTs or pretty much whatever comes at me. Like, you know, I feel like Doc was definitely a good preparation for life in general. And you can imagine when Mr. Hurd showed up, I was like, wow, this dude's got a tough job.
You didn't make it any easier, as I recall.
You can't say I did, but I just dropped the class.
That's true.
Glad you had to take a moment to say that.
Appreciate it.
Toast or prayer or anything we could say together?
I'm not sure what I do have one quick. Yeah, I'm just going to add a couple quick more things. It was very inspiring to sort of hear everybody share. And it's funny, whenever I try to kind of describe what it was like to learn Latin from Doc, it was it's kind of like trying to get a drink of water from like a fire hose, you know? You get like knocked over by it and you're like, there's water around me, and I'm pretty sure I caught like some of it. And you know, it's funny, after he passed too, and when I was teaching here as well, I thought, you know, maybe I could go back through some of my papers from, you know, when I took class with him. And it's funny, I prided myself in being this like amazing student, but I look back and it was like 74, like 57%, you know, like I was like, oh, you know, but that's just, you know, sort of how it was. Somehow, yeah, getting a C equaled an A, but like, yeah, it was a little kind of harsh sometimes at first. I did want to share two quick things that folks from outside had asked me to share because they couldn't be here. One is from Dr. Winifred Antonio, who is also on the faculty here. She just said, Doc was an exceptional person with a great loving heart, always ready to extend himself, someone too good for this world. And another one from a student of his. Doc was my Latin teacher, but this is what he did for me. When I was 17, I was in a terrible downward spiral. My dad had just left us, and I was coming to terms with his alcoholism and mental illness. More than anything, I felt terribly, horribly abandoned and was absolutely consumed by it. It felt like all I was garbage that my dad had thrown away. There was no ground beneath my feet. Former teachers who might read this might remember this time in my life. I don't remember exactly how I reached out to Doc about this, or maybe he reached out to me, because he could certainly see in class how troubled I was. And he took me and my mother to our first Al-Anon meeting. Without him, I would never have taken my first steps toward recovering from codependency and the legacy of my family history, or learned the language of self-awareness and self-care. Don't get too hungry, angry, lonely, or tired. The Serenity Prayer, a higher power. Doc 100% saved my life, 100%, and I'm not the only one. I haven't seen him for a long time, and I'm devastated that I couldn't catch up with him one last time. I pray that he sees what I did with what he taught me. I don't know if there's any good way people see to kind of, bring things to an end, but I really want to thank everybody, for sharing their experiences. I remember how devastated I felt when I found out he was retiring. I was like a self-centered teenager, right? So I was like, how could you possibly retire the year before I graduated, right? And, one of the things too when he passed that helped to humble me was just to understand the immensity of the impact really that he had over the years, before I was ever even on the planet. So I just really appreciate everybody sharing.
There's one more. I do want to tell one more that it's actually from the Facebook wall that I want to read, but it had a profound effect on me when someone posted about their experience with Doc. So I'm going to take a minute and just read it. Matt Carmichael's in here.
Who's that?
What? Oh, but I'm going to read something he posted actually. So it's a little long, but it was really, really poignant for me. For 4 years, I spent an hour a day in Cranbrook's room 111, earning a steady diet of C's. It was an anchor, weighing down my GPA in my hope of getting into the college of my choice. I could have quit at any time, dropped out of Latin and taken a class that I wasn't interested in. Because, to be honest, I was entirely into studying a foreign language and a dead one at that. Yet every fall, I signed on again. You could say that my teacher was a failure. That if, after all the time, I still didn't have a great grasp of the subjunctive mood, he wasn't getting through to me. But that guess would earn you even lower marks than I did on my weekly vocab quizzes or on the AP exam, which he really couldn't have prepped us better for. Doc, my teacher all those years ago, was unlike any other. He was a man of extremes. He smoked to extremes, gold wazes, the Jolt Cola cigarettes with all the tar and twice the nicotine. He drank coffee to extremes. He collected stray cats and stray students to extremes and nurtured both with equal zeal, making sure that we would eventually be fit company and not so shy and mistrusting of others. He taught 5 classes with 5 preps, a rather unheard of course load. I think when most people think of Latin class, they think of dusty books and dusty teachers dryly declining. Discipline is a word derived from the Latin. After all, and with its connections to Catholic schools as a language of dogma, one assumes that discipline and Latin remain intertwined. Not in room 111. Or in room 112 for that matter, where the outbursts from next door would cause Mr. Dagbovy, the neighboring French teacher, to glance over his shoulder from the blackboard, staring at the back wall and shaking his head. I remember that. At times he would actually come knock on our door or lean out the window to see what the ruckus was. When he looked in at the daily play going on hour after hour through Latin 1, 2, 3, AP 4, and AP 5, he might have seen Doc banging on chalk on the blackboard, or kids playing cards under his desk, or Doc passionately explaining how the use of ablative case changed the meaning of a line in Horace's Odes. Oh, I'm sorry. I was a French guy. But I'm his age too. Or the kids sitting up in the window, still seemingly not paying attention. Someone walking down the hall might, on rare but special occasions, find Doc standing with one foot on each doorknob, swinging back and forth, making monkey noise, all so he could fit in better with a circus slash zoo inside his classroom. Commotion. There's another good Latin-derived word. All the while he was teaching, in that classroom and especially beyond it. Teaching Latin for sure. Teaching about having passion, even for a language long given up for dead. Teaching about the extremes he'll go to for that passion. In my case, he once told me that he was envious of the fact that I could prioritize in my own life. If something was important to me, I could drop everything until it was addressed. He was telling me, essentially, that he understood why I wasn't getting A's. He might prefer if I applied myself more, but he knew I wouldn't, and that maybe that was okay in the long run. He couldn't do that. Doc was binary. Every day, the dial was set to 1 or 0. Every day was coffee, class, smoke, cats, class, smoke, bridge, prep for tomorrow, smoke, cats, and maybe eventually sleep. I think he eventually had to give much of that up, not cut back, 0. And somehow he also fit in making a profound difference in people's lives. The testimonials that started rolling in after his passing this week show the impact he had on students, not just with the minutes in his classroom, but throughout their lives. Refrains of, "He saved my life," echo in the comments on Facebook. He listened. He fought for me. He taught me how to be myself. I can't think of many teachers who were as beloved by the students getting C's and D's as those getting A's. And to that end, I'll share one more story of my own. It's partly about me. It was always a bit of a mystery how I got into Northwestern. Let's just say I was a borderline candidate to be sure. My GPA could have been higher, and likely would have been if I dropped Latin. Doc knew I wanted to go to Northwestern, and without prompting of any sort, just sort of out of the blue, wrote them a letter about why they should accept me. Not part of my formal application, just an outside voice. A letter of support from the teacher of my weakest subject. He signed it, Stephen Rosenquist, PhD, because those letters mattered, and were signed that he knew that education, that learning, and teaching mattered. Though I'll never know for sure, I suspect it made a difference to the folks at admissions. Regardless, it made a difference to me. So RIP drop into rest in peace, Doc.
Yeah, that's good. Remember, your vocabulary quizzes are over here. Some of them are